This is Coach Jacksonville, where we talk about how to not only run a coaching practice, but best practices and anything that involves coaching. And what I'd like for each of us to do is go around and introduce ourselves and say who you are, maybe what, if you have an organization or a company, when what you're famous for, and then maybe something that's special is happening right now. So I'm actually going to start just to show you how I do it. Doug Wilder coach, been coaching now for 28 years, and what's different now is that I have people who are doing things for me. I've got Caroline, who is running the programs as always. I've got her assistant is Emily, and she's doing the technology today.
I can't really see.
Well, you can actually, yeah, that's right. You turn. And then,
I guess I could just turn around.
Yeah, you could just turn it. That's why it's on a turntable.
Excellent.
Yeah, and then I've got a couple coaches that are Wilder coaches, and including Heidi Aderman. And then we have Mark McSigman, who's talking about becoming a Wilder coach also. So it's a lot of fun over here at Wilder, and so that's what's special happening in my time. Joe, can I have you introduce yourself next, and we'll just go around the table.
Ladies first, but sure. Joe McClure, known Doug for way too long. Probably back in the 90s.
Yeah, it wasn't the 90s, early 90s.
It's been an honor.
Yeah.
Okay. Doug is the nice coach. I'm the guy that grabs people, slam them down, beat them on the head, and say, "Get your shit together, let's get something done." So we kind of complement each other in a strange kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
I deal mainly with business owners around the city. I'm deeply involved in politics as far as trying to get something fixed in Jacksonville. I have a new organization in the last couple of years called the Coalition, and our byline is "Let's Build a Better Jacksonville." So that's going to require new ordinances, probably changing the charter. I work with city council, and we damn well got to get a better mayor than we have right now. So anyhow, having said that, thanks again for allowing me to be at another Coach Jacksonville.
I love it. Glad you're here. Thank you. Elizabeth?
My name is Elizabeth Pampalone, and I am a marketing coach, and I do also implementation of marketing, and I help my clients to create 1 year of marketing content in 5 days.
Cool. And you'll be speaking today.
Yes, about podcasting.
Great. Let's go on, and Marilyn, let's start with you.
Myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, everybody. So I am Marilyn Feldstein, and I'm a career coach, and I have my company Career Choices Unlimited for 21 years now, which is hard for me to believe. And I survived the pandemic. Wondered about that. And I do everything from career assessments with my clients. I write resumes based on where they're going. I market them, make sure they're branding themselves well based on where they're going, as well as preparing them for interviews and helping them negotiate salary and benefits. And also have lots of clients that I continued working with for a decade or more, helping them continue to grow in their careers, as well as negotiate promotions and things like that. What's new is last year during the pandemic, I had been thinking about starting a podcast, and I did that last year. So that's why, Elizabeth, I'm interested in learning more about what you've done. And it's been a fun journey, and I'm still learning. And what else can I tell you? I do presentations, workshops, and write a lot of articles, and still love what I do. So I inspire my clients to find the purpose and passion in their careers.
Yes, you've been on television a lot too, right?
Not lately, but I have been in the past.
Mhm.
That's always
Okay.
fun.
Good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Leela, what's going on in your world?
Hi, good to see everybody. Marilyn, what you just described is a lot of what I do. I have not ventured into podcasts and things like that though, so I'm excited to be here and learn from you, Emily. But I've been coaching about 5 years and I have an HR background, HR generalist, and mainly recruitment background. So I do a little bit of both. And I actually just launched my practice, but I haven't really announced anything, again, hence I'm interested to be here. But I am working on a certificate in positive intelligence. So working with Shirzad, Shamin, and kind of adding that to my practice, but most of my practice is job search strategy, which is what Marilyn described. Because I come from a career services industry, that is where I've learned my coaching, and that's where I've been for the last 5 years. So
Perfect.
what else can I tell you?
That's pretty good. That's a good description. Thanks. Gary. Hi, Gary.
Hey, Doug, I had to find my mute button. So I'm Gary Hallett, and I'm the principal at Gateway Business Advisors. We're a business brokerage M&A firm in Jacksonville, and I'm here because I miss seeing Doug and Elizabeth both. Let me see. Something unique. Doug and I won a trivia contest at one of the council meetings a few years ago. That was fun. And I'm not very good at it at all, but my wife's pretty good and he's really good.
He was very good.
Yeah. And when I'm on your newsletter list, and when I saw the topic, Elizabeth and I used to be in a group together, and we had a great time. I just haven't seen her for a long time. It was like a lot of people, we miss seeing one another. So I thought it was a pretty fascinating topic, and that's why I'm here today.
Excellent.
Good to see you, Gary.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Thanks, Gary. Wendy, let's hear from you.
Hello. And hi, Elizabeth. I knew Elizabeth way years back in a networking group and stayed on her mailing list. So I've actually spent more than the last decade being a medical advocate for rare and complex chronic illness. And I'm in the process of writing a book based on that. And part of promoting the book would be getting into podcasts. And I also want to use it as a springboard into public speaking, because my favorite, I can offer a lot of help to people trying to traverse chronic illness and whatnot, but I would love an opportunity to talk to medical students, because there's so much they aren't taught that from the patient side and medical advocate side, they could learn a great deal, and it would really be helpful to their future patients. So that's why I'm interested in the idea of promoting through podcasts.
Excellent. Good. Welcome, Wendy. How about Brenda?
Hi, I'm Brenda. I am the marketing coordinator at Eckert and Associates. And I am interested in this because we have been trying to expand our YouTube channel and potentially podcasting. And I'm on Elizabeth's mailing list, so that's how I heard about it.
Excellent.
Thank you.
And is
Good.
it a law office, Brenda, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Thanks, Brenda. Caroline.
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm Doug's Director of Marketing. And we have a lot of exciting things on. Like Doug said, we've got some new Wilder coaches coming on the team. And for over a year now, which is exciting, we've had the Wilder Wisdom subscription. And I will put a link to that in the chat if you guys would like to learn more. It's a coaching subscription where you can pick the level of engagement you want and the different items you're interested in.
Excellent. Thank you. Emily, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Let's turn this around. Hello, everyone. I'm Emily Wilder. I have known Doug my entire life. I'm his daughter. And I'm just here to help out Caroline and Doug and their venture towards making the world a better place. That's all I have right now, but mostly just to help out. And yeah, we shot some more Wilder Wisdoms last week, and we're excited to release those. So good to meet everyone. Bye. I mean, not bye. I'll see you.
Thank you, Emily. What a great kid. If I do say so myself. Okay, so that's who's here. And is there, are there any announcements that anybody would like to make? Any programs or things that we should key into as coaches? No.
Well, I have mine, but I'll talk
Yes,
about it. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right, great. How do we do a group photo, Caroline? How would you suggest we do that?
I would turn off the self view for you guys in the room, and then one of your cameras you guys have there, take a photo with all of us in gallery view.
It's in gallery right now.
The room, but turn off the self view and you guys first, because we don't need that in the photo.
Okay, I don't think we're on self view.
We're in gallery.
Right.
Oh.
You can turn off your own camera, or not turn off your camera, but turn off so you don't
Oh, I see what she said. Yeah.
Turn
Okay.
off what?
Yeah, turn off.
hover over your square and click the ellipses. You can hide self view.
And then take the picture from
Oh, oh, yes.
it.
Oh, very good.
Yeah.
Okay, great. And can you take a picture of that? I guess Caroline.
Well, no, we're gonna have to take a picture
Oh.
with the.
Oh, we'll do a selfie?
I mean, I can do a screen grab too.
Well, I think she wanted to do a real picture.
Start as engaging as seeing a real room of people.
Oh, got it. Oh, excellent. Okay, I see.
All right.
Doug, maybe have Emily take the photo.
All right, good. That's a great idea.
You get it?
You know, you can also do a print screen that,
I did hide self view and I don't see myself now, so I don't know what that means.
Try to make it.
Yeah, Marilyn, you don't have to hide yourself. Just, we had to do
Hold
it.
on, let me see what I need to do. Yeah, let me see. How do I get back? Am I back? Can you see me?
Yeah,
Am
we
I-
can see
Yeah,
you.
you're
I
fine.
can't, yeah, I can't see
Now give
you.
us a countdown so we're all looking at our cameras and not our screens and smiling.
Okay.
Smile.
1, 2, 3. Okay,
All
excellent.
right, great. Thank you. All right, thank you all for humoring us with that.
There you go, got
Great.
it.
All right, good. Okay, so I think we're ready for our
We're ready?
presentation. You're gonna put us back on
Yes.
the right view. Okay. All right,
Oh, yeah.
now
You
Elizabeth
can
is
switch
back
back
on.
together, right? I think we did that. That's you.
Great. All right, so Elizabeth,
Yes.
so you're going to tell us all about all the things we need to know in an hour. And I'm sure that it'll just touch just a small fragment of all the things that you teach and do. So I'm excited because you've been the queen of networking for so long. And so without me taking up the whole time, why don't you go ahead and
Okay, I'm actually gonna switch to the end and I
Yes.
project, so it
Yes.
won't be loud enough, but it's hard for me to like look back
Yeah,
and
yeah,
forth.
sure,
So
sure,
I'm gonna
sure.
switch with you real
yeah,
quick.
okay,
And I'll just switch to the end there.
all right.
Thank you.
Good.
That way I can see
Would you like some
everyone.
water? You've got
Oh,
your
I gotta
own.
get water too.
Okay.
So thank you guys for being here today and for all of the awesome, lovely faces, and for the people who are here who came from my email list. So that's really exciting for me. So I hopefully you'll have some interesting things about podcasting that I'll share with you. This is all from my own experience. I started podcasting in 2014. So way back when it was, kind of newish. And I was doing an hour-long podcast that was interview-based. It was so difficult to go through and edit every single time I needed to do one. I made funny commercials. I did all kinds of things. So it was really a lot to keep up with, and I couldn't keep going with it. And so I decided that I was going to change the way that I was doing it when I went the second time around. So I'm going to share that with you today. So again, I'm Elizabeth Pampalone. I am a marketer, and I've been doing this for 20 years total, but I've had my business for 15. And I have gotten to the point in about 2017 where I decided that I wasn't going to do it the way everybody else did anymore. I was going to do it my own way, my own direction. And I seem really crazy to a lot of people because of the way that I do things, but it works for me and it works for my clients. So, and I did the same thing with podcasting, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So, I believe that your brand is actually the foundation of your entire business. So if you're going to try and podcast, you have to make sure that you have a solid brand first. You can't just go out there and say, I'm just going to start a podcast, unless it's going to serve your brand in a specific way. And I've seen a lot of people just start them randomly. Maybe they like a certain topic or they like a certain genre. And so then they just kind of start with that, and they don't really have any rhyme or reason to it. I've also seen people throw them together really hurriedly, and then it doesn't go with anything. Their podcast cover, which is the little image you see, doesn't go with anything. And then you don't really know who it's connected with. And sometimes the name they choose is very random. So I like to make sure that before you even start, it's actually all associated with your branding. And so if you think about your business and your brand, what would make the most sense? Because we don't want to actually reinvent the wheel, right? We want to create something that is the same as what we're already doing, so that we're not having to do double work. Hello. So yeah, do you want to pause for a minute? I can stop.
That's all right. Hi, Ursula. Good
Hi,
to
I'm
see you.
sorry, I'm
That's
late.
all right. No problem.
Allergies.
Oh, no problem. Yeah,
Getting there. Thank
Good.
you. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to this.
good, good. Good to see you.
Good to see
You
you.
haven't, she just started, and
Yeah.
she's saying the brand first,
Branding is important. That's the first thing.
and it's the center of
It's
everything.
the center of everything. And I actually don't let my clients build a website, do a social media post, do a podcast until their brand is good and solid. So got to have that first before we do anything else. And when it comes to a podcast, like I said, it has to make sense with what you're already doing. You don't want to go outside that box too far. I've had people that have done like personal podcasts where they talk about a topic that has nothing to do with their business, nothing to do with their life, in business and their actual brand, but it's something that's very personal to them. And that may be fine, and they can keep that separate, but it's definitely going to be something that doesn't associate with their business. And so I have friends, they have a podcast called Pat and the Fat Man. It's just two guys that talk about sports and beer and all kinds of random things, but it doesn't have anything to do with what they actually do for a living. And it's its own brand. It has its own personal branding, but it doesn't have anything. They don't share it on their social. They don't talk about it outside of their personal, side of things. So just keep that in mind. And you don't want to start a podcast and have to reinvent all the content. It should be part of what you're already doing. I believe this is the same for what content you post in your blog, content you post on your socials, your podcast, any videos you make. It should already be something that you've already actually created or will, are already creating, and you just use a different format to present the same information. We should only really have about 3 stories that we tell, and 3 to 4 things that we actually talk about, and all of our media should reflect that and should tell those same stories over and over. So once we know that we have a really solid brand, and that brand does include, your demographics, your psychographics, knowing your audience really well to the point where you could describe them to somebody and they would say, oh, I have a friend just like that. Let me bring them to you. So that's really part of that brand. Also the visuals, the colors, the fonts, all the pretty side of things as well. And it does also include things like your mission, your vision, that kind of stuff. So The next thing when you're looking at your podcast as a potential option is, what is your actual purpose for this? You don't want to just start a podcast and not have any direct purpose. Some people want to gain followers, gain leads, build credibility. SEO is a big one for podcasting. It can actually really help with SEO. If you're not really found online, podcasting is like a silver bullet almost to make you found online really easily. And then you can also replace your in-person networking, which is what I did last year with my podcasting. And I'm going to talk about that. I'm going to actually break this into two things today. I'm going to talk about being a guest and being a host. So there's two ways you can use this. And I did both last year. And I'm going to tell you some stories about how it helps my business, and they're a little crazy sounding, but they're real. So this is why I love talking about podcasting. When I work with somebody, we create a brand in a day, website in a day, 12 months of social posts in a day, 12 months of blogs in a day, and 12 months of email campaigns in a day.
Wow.
I have 2 alternate days, and one of them is podcast in a day. And we help create an entire podcast system. We help create like graphics for it, taglines. We get you set up with all the distribution, so you're out on all the platforms. You actually record an episode or 2 in that day. And so we're setting it up and getting you on a schedule so that you are ready to go out there and do it. And it's such a great thing to host, but I almost think that if you're not familiar with editing and doing a lot of technical things and that kind of stuff, it's way better to be a guest. It's so much easier. So we're going to talk about both of those today. But you really do have to have a goal, whether you're going to be a host or a guest, doesn't matter. Got to have a goal. You can't just go out there and be like, I want to be on a podcast, I'm going to start one. You have to know what you're going after, because that's going to inform how you actually put out your content. When you put out your content, are you going to reshare what someone does for you as their podcast, and then you're on their podcast? So you really need to know, are you gaining followers, gaining leads, credibility, SEO, or are you replacing in-person networking? And there's other options for that too, but those are kind of the main ones. So a lot of people might say, well, podcasting, we know everyone's on social media. That's great, but how many people are really listening to podcasts? There are actually 166 million people who regularly listen to podcasts.
Wow.
And this is US only. And these are the US numbers. There's 222 million people who've heard of podcasts. So there's quite a bit more than just listen regularly, but you see that gap isn't even that large. There's a lot of people that listen regularly, and there's only a few more that actually know what a podcast is over that. So a lot of the people who know what a podcast is, they listen on a regular basis, weekly, daily, monthly, whenever those podcasts they listen to come out. There's actually over 4.3, I believe it is now, it might be more, 4.3 million podcasts in existence. That's not episodes, that's actual individual shows. Some people have 2, 3, 4 shows that they run at one time. There are podcasting companies that do editing work. There are podcasting companies that do like show running. They're like producers. This has become almost like a mini Hollywood, but for audio. There are dramatization shows. There are real life crime drama shows. It's almost like having everything you can think of on television, time, and all of that. And then like another 60% of it is self-help. So, and like conversational shows and things like that. So think like if Ricky Lake didn't have TV, she'd be on a podcast. She'd be doing that like from back in the day.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And is it okay to ask questions?
Yeah.
Go along. When you're talking about a podcast, do you only mean audio, or do you mean audio and visual?
So that's kind of an up to you thing.
Yeah.
It can be either one. I know a lot of people that will record video.
Yeah.
They'll save it and they won't do anything with it. They'll just release the audio. I specifically, when I do mine as a host, I love just audio. It's so much easier for me, and I don't have to worry about it. But there's a lot of people who like to build their YouTube following at the same time, or build their TikTok following or whatever. And so you can also use a lot of those clips and stuff on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram. So it depends on, goes back to that, why are we doing this reason?
Mhm.
So if there's a reason we're doing this and it's about visibility, it's about gaining more coaches, it's about getting better SEO, it's about starting up your brand and getting any kind of follower, whatever those answers are, you're going to actually figure out what your purpose is first. And then once these more technical things come into play, is it video, is it audio? Where do I distribute it? Do I publish the video on YouTube? Or do I publish it privately and only share it with my followers? And it's longer than my actual audio where I cut it and don't share the whole thing, you know, and I share that free. There's all kinds of things you can do with it, and you can even make some money with it, with making it paid once you get to a certain level.
Mhm. Good, thank you.
So you can add stuff to your membership too, which kind of you
Uh-huh.
could do. Like, I have one guy that I know, he does a 15-minute podcast, and I was on his podcast a couple of times. And I was on his 15 minutes. He had interview questions. We went through it. I actually gave a lot of info. And then he said, great, thanks guys. Have a great day. He turned off the recording and he's like, okay, do you have a few more minutes? And I was like, okay, because we had an hour to record. He's like, all right, we're going to do another episode, and this is only for my membership. And he went into a whole different set of questions, more in depth, more like meat, you know, and he really like dug into a subject, a topic. And it was really fun because he was like, all right, you guys are the members, like, and he was talking to me, did the intro and everything. But on the first one, I felt like we were just having a nice conversation and I was giving some info. And then on the second one, it was like, let's dig in there, let's give these people some real value. But it was his paid membership. And they knew if they listened to that first podcast, he said at the end, if you want to hear the full interview, become a member. So he was definitely making that work for himself. So so there's some options with that. Again, goes back to your purpose. The average person, the average listener, who's one of those 166 million, they listen to 8 shows a day.
Wow.
How long is each show?
That depends. Again, goes back to that purpose. It depends on if you're using it. Again, purpose is really, really key. So I have some people that use it for, let me interview this author. It's going to be a 60-minute interview, 45 to 60 minutes. We're really going to get in depth. And the people listen to those shows, they're listening to that show for that content, right? Like they're really invested in it. So I have a friend here in Jacksonville. He runs a podcasting system that's actually good. And I'm going to share all these like tools and stuff with you guys. And he started it a couple years ago. He's interviewed the guy that I'm trying to think, Seth Godin. He's interviewed the Hallett guy, not Gary, but a different one. I think his name is Hallett. He has like a to-do book that he wrote or something. Like there's all these different like famous people that he's interviewed, but he does it because it's about, they have a book coming out. He reaches out to them. It's for publicity. But then he gets these like famous people on his show. And then you're like, oh my gosh, then he must be famous. He's not. He's giving them free publicity. And that's another reason I like to look at the guesting side of it as free publicity. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to edit. I don't have to create anything. I don't have to write anything. I don't have to pay anybody for anything. I can literally show up, chat about what I know, what I love, and be an awesome guest. And I always, you have to pitch these people sometimes. Sometimes they'll just come to you, but there is an art of a pitch as well, which I'll talk about. But I really love that we can be a guest and not have to really do much except show up and like, and then share it when it's done. Like I can just share it now. It's already done. I don't have to edit and cut and paste and slice and all audio, whatever. I don't have to do all that fancy stuff. So being a guest, I think being a guest is important because like I said, it can give you this free publicity. Now I will say, I'll warn you, there are shows that charge. There's one show about entrepreneurs. I can't remember the name of it. They charge $1,500 per episode. And that's not really the charge per episode. That's the charge to apply. And it's non-refundable. They may or may not take you.
Whoa.
And it's $1,500. So that's how they make their money. And they do have famous people that go on there, but you can just get most of that stuff for free. If you just go somewhere else, you can go to Alex and you can talk to Alex and he'd probably put you on for free if you'd written a book, because that's his format. So I love to pitch podcasts with the same pitch almost every single time. because I'm the same every time. I don't really change. So when you're actually going out and looking for podcasts, there'll be an opportunity to pitch them. And this is the best way to get to be a guest, to start to be a guest. No one's going to just come up to you and be like, oh my gosh, be on my podcast. You have to go out there and find it. So there are a couple of tools that I'll share towards the end. There are lots of links and stuff. I'll share that at the end. And you can actually go to these websites, look at all the opportunities that are available, almost like job postings, and then just start applying. Apply. I'm on an email list, which I love. And I'll share that as well. And it's basically, they send you an email every couple of days, 2 to 5 days, depends on their scheduling. And it's just a list of tons of potential guests that you could have on your show. There's like maybe 20 guests that they have listed with a little mini bio and a photo, and you can click on and read more and all that. And then they have a list of about 10 or so shows. And they tell you what kind of guests they're looking for, what their topic is. I usually look at the titles. If the title makes sense to me and has the word entrepreneur in it, then I usually just apply. And then sometimes it'll be like about women or like women's empowerment, or, you know, someone who went through a struggle and came out the other side. And I have a pitch that I copy and paste. I have it in my notes on my computer. It has my main bio, my main pitch about my business, my little taglines, you know, all that little, it's a paragraph. That's it for my business. And then I have like a smaller paragraph that is about when I went through my divorce and when I started my business. And that's my struggle paragraph. So if they want to struggle, they're like, have you been through something? I have my struggle paragraph. And then I have my, this is what I do as a business owner. This is why you're going to want me on your show kind of thing. And so I'll just add or take away depending on what that podcast needs. So my pitch is the same always though. And I've actually gotten on shows just because my pitch was so interesting to them and different. And I'm kind of like you, Joe, right? I am like, here's the answer, do it or don't, you're the adult, have a nice day. I'm more like, you know, I'm very straight, very blunt with people. And my pitch actually says, this is Elizabeth Pampalone, she's your best guest ever. That's the first line. And I've had people say, no one has ever told me they're my best guest ever. And then when they have me on, they're like, you weren't lying. Like this is, and then they come back a couple months later, people have emailed me and they'll say, that was my highest listened to show.
Wow.
And it continues to be #1 on their list. So so that's been really nice. That's been great.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Do you use that then when they say that was my highest listed show? Can you use that then?
I haven't gone back. So people just email me like randomly, and I haven't like calculated like which show and which, because I was on last year. I applied for over 500 shows.
Wow.
Because there was nothing else to do at the time, and I got on over 140 just last year between March and December.
You were a guest on those
140.
shows, 140.
Yeah. And then I also did about 80 of my own last year. Well, like recorded my own shows. So
do you, excuse me, do you, I'm thinking of like TV interviews, you know, do you give them questions ahead of time?
So that's actually part of, that's actually part of what I have here listed. So yeah, I'm going to get to that because there's a whole list of things that I give them, and I'm going to give you guys that list as well. So I actually apply almost every single day to shows now. I don't apply to as many as I was applying to before, because I was doing like 20 or 30 applications a day. But that's because that was my goal. My goal was to be on 100 from the time I started in March, when there was nothing else to do, to the end of the year, was to be on 100 shows. And I didn't know what the ratio was going to be. I didn't know how many. I applied to 10, I get on 1. I had no idea. So I had to just keep applying to as many as I could every day. And I used a lot of different formats. Now I'm kind of down to like the email that comes to me. I'm down to like 1 or 2 of those websites. and I just check them 2 or 3 times a week. And if I get an email in between there, I'll just look through it, apply and be done. Because it takes 5 minutes. It doesn't take long once you have your list
Mhm,
done.
mhm.
So I think you should be applying on a regular basis if you want to keep having shows continue. Right now, I am so backed up with how many shows that I've been on in the past year, like just
Mhm.
this year,
Mhm.
that I have shows that are still being posted, like, scheduled, that I've already been on, that they were like, here's your show, here's your link, go promote it. Those are out until February of next year. So like, I'm not even, so if I was on your show today and you said, here's your link, it's ready, it's up, I wouldn't even share it until March of next year, because that's how far out that I am. And that's been that way since like June of last year, that I've been like 2-3 months ahead because I did so many.
How many do you promote like in a week? Just one?
I promote 2 a week.
Promote 2 a week?
Yeah. So every Tuesday and Thursday from now until February. And that's why I keep applying though, because I don't want that to run out. And I don't mind promoting it later. Some shows are like, you have to promote it this week, and they're really strict. I don't even apply for those. I'm like, that's not how I work. We're not going to be good together. So I just say, I'm going to share it when I share it. And they're like, that's fine, as long as you share it. They appreciate that. And it's good for them because that show might come out today, but I'm not going to post it till next year in March. It's still going to be applicable because I don't talk about anything that's seasonal
Time
related or
sensitive.
time sensitive. So, but they're going to get a boost 3 months from now, 6 months from now, wherever that timeline hits. So they're going to have a boost now. I'm going to have a boost now. And then later when it hits my list, a bunch of people are going to listen to it that I might not even know now. So if I promoted it now, I'm actually getting people later that I've met since then. So I like having like that offset. So I actually, like I said, I have my paragraph that's about business. I have my mini paragraph, which is like 2 sentences about my divorce and starting my business and like my struggle. And then I share all this with them. So my pitch is the same every time. I just use different pieces of it. And then I created a one sheet on my website. So a lot of people think a one sheet is something you would print, like it's a PDF document and all that. I had to change mine so often that didn't work for me, like at all. So I made a physical page on my website. That's my press kit. So if you go to getabsolutemarketing.com/press kit, you'll actually be able to see the whole thing. And it's just my name spelled out. And if your name is a little weird to say, or some people often mispronounce it, you can also put your phonetic spelling there so that they can, read it. Because there's a girl on the radio right now. Her name is Shavala Kabatnagar.
Yeah.
I would not be able to say that.
I don't know how you got that.
I hear it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, you have to know how to phonetically like say it.
Yeah.
And so if you want to put your name on there, because they're going to copy and paste it. So spell it correctly and have your phonetic spelling listed. I know it sounds like, well, my name's on my website already, but this is just their page. This is all they're looking at. I put a bio, I put a long bio and a short bio. I've just gone to my short bio now. It's like 3 sentences. I don't need a long one. No one needs to know all that. I'll tell it to you as we go through the podcast. Like that'll come out eventually. So I just do a short bio. I have multiple headshots they can choose from. Maybe they're doing something with a triangle and one of my photos looks better in a triangle or a circle or with a diagonal line, like I'm leaning this way and they're going to put the line like this on their thing. So it's just like, here's some pictures, have at it. I also put my expert topics because sometimes they don't know what they want to talk about or what I want to talk about. So I just list off the 7 or 8 topics that I talk about and the actual descriptions of each. So it's kind of the same as my speaking list. I just reference it and it's just the title of the talk, what I talk about, and then the audience takeaway and the actual audience it's for. And then I do a fun facts section, just some bullet points like I'm the queen of networking, I own 3 tiaras, I'm a chocolate milk connoisseur, like random little things that nobody would really know. And it's just some people use them and it's fun because that's the way their show is built and some people don't. So, I put my logo on there because everybody always wants your logo to help promote, which is fine. So I put a nice clean version of my logo, my website link, because even though they're on your website, it's just easier for them to copy and paste. So give them the website link. All my social links are there listed in bullet points. And then I also have 2 freebies that I give away, and I share that with every show. So they might say at the end, hey, do you have a freebie you want to share with us? And I'll say yes. And then I'll actually give them those links in that page as well. So when I send them my pitch, I'm giving them that main bio, which has like, I'm your best guest ever. And then I'm giving them, if they need my struggle story, I'll give them my other paragraph. And then I say, here's everything else you need to know. And I'll give them the link to my press kit in my pitch. Because if they see that I'm that prepared, they're gonna be like, this is gonna be the easiest person I ever work with. Because they're constantly trying to get bios from people, constantly trying to get images from people. And that makes them not want to do it, right? So if I'm super prepared, they love that. And they'll actually pick you up before someone else because of that. So that is guesting. Anybody have any questions about guesting? It was a lot.
Do you ever get paid?
I have not gotten paid, but I do have a story that I will tell about guesting and payment in that way. So
Because you're so famous now.
I know, I kind of am, and it's a little like embarrassing. So any other questions about that before I tell my story?
Elizabeth, I have a question.
Yeah.
I just had to get off mute. Sorry.
Yeah.
So you mentioned a list that you could go on or you could look at. Where do we find that?
There are so many of them, and I have like 3 or 4 of them listed in my Pro Toolkit on my website. It's free. You just put your email in, and it will give you all the tools that I use, and those podcasting tools are in there. There's also my editor for when I do my own shows, the editing that I use, the hosting that I use, and I'm going to talk a little bit about those too, but every single tool that I literally use, whether it's to be on a podcast or to create a podcast, is in that Pro Toolkit.
And what is your website again?
It's getabsolutemarketing.com.
Get Absolute. Okay.
Yes, getabsolutemarketing.com. The other one was taken.
Gotcha. Okay. Thanks.
Yes. Any other questions?
The toolkit in the chat for those of you who
Oh,
are.
thank you, Caroline.
I have a question.
Yes.
I had to step away for a moment. Did you say that you send like a speaker's one sheet or anything like that?
Yes, I actually have an entire web page dedicated to it. I call it a press kit. And I just gave a whole list of everything that's on it. In my membership, which is, I give everyone 2 weeks free. I actually have an entire video series on podcasting. And this elements of a one sheet is in there. And if it's not, I'll check it this afternoon. If it's on there, I'll put it in there. But this is just a list of the podcasting things that I use, like name, bio, headshots, expert topics, fun facts, logo, website links, social links, and then like my freebie and opt-in links. So I don't do it as a PDF because I was changing it all the time. But I do it as a web page, so I have more control over it, and I don't have to constantly like edit a PDF and then resave it and all that jazz. So
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's smart. She's smart.
Right. Yeah.
I've done this before. So I'll tell you my story about getting paid. Well, sort of. It's not really about getting paid, but a lot of people think that they can start a blog and make tons of money, right?
Oh, yeah.
No, that's not reality. A lot of people think that they can start a podcast and get tons of sponsorships. It's not reality. You can get sponsorships, and there actually is a new company coming out. It's not out yet, but as soon as it is, I'll be repping it, I'm sure. Who's going to be connecting people, just like there are websites out there that'll connect you to other podcasters, like, hey, I want to be a guest, let me connect you to hosts. Hey, I'm a host, let me connect you to other guests, right? So there's going to be one out there that's going to connect people to sponsors that will pay. So I'm very excited about that. It's still in the works. So as soon as I know about it, you guys will know about it. But my story is a little bit different. I started this, my whole reason for starting this is I do weird experiments in marketing. I have done, I networked 3 times a day for an entire year, every day. That was my networking one. I wanted to be one of the most well-known people in Jacksonville. And at the time, I accomplished it. And then I did an experiment where I only took appointments on Fridays. It's from 10 to 12. And I made more money that month than I did any other month of taking appointments all the time.
Wow.
So I do these like weird random experiments. And so my experiment last year was, how do I replace in-person networking? Because it was just gone. And that was where most of my business came from. And I said, well, how do I get a one-to-one relationship going and a one-to-many relationship going at the same time? Well, where else would you get that except podcasting? Talking to Doug, he's the host. We're having a great conversation. We're connecting. I'm sharing things about what I do. And he's like, oh, I know some people that might be able to use that. And he's also sharing it with his entire audience. And now I just have had a one-to-many conversation as well. So I thought, perfect, replace in-person networking. That was my little experiment. And then I thought, I got to have a goal because I can't just do it forever and with no end in sight. And I said, I need to be on 100 by the end of the year. I just picked a number and it ended up being 140, which was amazing. So in November, and this is towards the end, right? So I'm already at like 120 something, 100, 120, somewhere in there. It's November. And I'm on this guy's show. It's like his second show ever. He has no followers. He has like nothing, right? And so when you're going on as a guest, and I'll just kind of give this as a little extra anecdote, don't worry about how many followers they have. That has nothing to do with anything. And that's why these other shows will charge up to $3 grand to be on their show because, well, they have this prestigious list and, you know, all these followers. Doesn't matter. It means nothing because if they're not the right people for you, it doesn't mean anything. You could just pay all that money for nothing. So I never paid attention to how many shows they had, how many followers they had. The only thing I wanted to know was, were they good at asking questions? Could we have a great conversation? And trust me, I was on some bad shows, like horrible, horrible shows. Some of them never saw the light of day, thank God. But this guy had only been out, he only had one show out. Mine was the second one. He hadn't even released them yet. He was like just doing 5 and then he was going to start releasing them. And he was just a great guy to talk to. He was up in Michigan and he was like, you know, trying to help people out. It was called small business. He's still doing some stuff, but not as much. And this was when the CARES money started to come out. And he was like, my city of Cambridge has no idea what to do with this money. So we're having this conversation and he's like, you seem like you know what you're talking about. You seem like you know what you're doing when it comes to marketing. He's like, I have a business coach that I've just interviewed. I've interviewed you. I have this graphic designer that I've interviewed. And there was somebody else. And he goes, I'm going to put together a team. Are you okay if I put your name in that hat? I was like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. And he said, what would you be able to give? Let's say I put together a package, like the coach gives something and they know all these things. I said, I don't know. I have this social media course. It's like $150. I'll give you access to it. So he's like, all right, I'm going to put together a package. He goes to the city. He promotes it to the city. They're like, well, we don't know what to do with all this money. So they say, sure. And he comes to me and he says, okay, I can only, and he worked out the math and I trusted him. He was not trying to like get rich quick. He's like, I'll give you 120 per course. And I was like, well, that's not bad since, you know, I'm not doing anything else except sitting here. And they had 8 people sign up for this program that the city was offering. And the whole thing was you had to have a conversation with each person as you gave them the access or whatever. So I had to do like a 30-minute coaching thing as well. And I thought, whatever, I'll do it. I don't care. And I thought, you know what? If I talk to somebody now, I can usually sell them something. I don't mean to, but I usually can. And I said to him, I was like, well, what if I sell them something like by accident? Like, I'm not really trying to. What if it just happens? And he said, well, then that's fine. Like if they agree to do something, you're not like coercing them. You're just telling them about what you do and they want to, great. So I thought, all right, this is perfect. So I agreed. I did all the sessions with everybody and had one client spend 10 grand with me. And I had another client spend 4 grand with me. And the one that spent 10 grand came back this year and spent another 3 grand.
Wow.
So this guy, 2 episodes in, no followers, does this crazy thing with the city. And then he continually like keeps calling me for other things. We haven't done anything big since then, but like he'll be like, hey, do you know anything about this? And if I do, I'll refer him to somebody or whatever. So I'm still on his radar, still in the mix. But it's like that one conversation had like more than what, 17,000 or so dollars in impact over 2 years. I did 140 shows. One of them, the one that I thought, I'll just talk to this guy, it's not going to be a thing. So that one was the one that actually made all the money. So
I think you're very open to doing what you do without everything up ahead has to make me money. There's a creativity and openness on your part that in this case, ironically, produce some money. And if you had just blown him off and said, oh, this isn't worth it, why do that? I think that's, a good feature that you have in working with people, that you're not judgmental up front.
And it's about every opportunity. I mean, there's so many opportunities with podcasting. And there's been some I've said no to. But they were very specific reasons I said no to them. They were, maybe I knew I talked to the person, because sometimes they'll do like a pre-interview. And I knew that it wasn't gonna be good sound quality. They didn't really know how to interview someone. They were short with me. They weren't engaged. They were just like, what was your name again? Like that kind of, no, not doing that. So there was things like that, or maybe they just didn't have the right audience, or maybe they said something in their little bio thing and I applied and they said yes. And then we started, I'm like, this isn't really what I thought it was going to be, kind of thing. So there's some I've turned down, but it's really about being open to like every single opportunity that comes, because again, that could just been a fluke, but also that was a relationship that I would never have, if I was only looking at numbers and going, oh, he's only done 2 episodes, I'm not gonna even bother, So that's my hosting, I remember my guesting story. Any questions about that or guesting? Because I'm gonna move to hosting and get that in. It's a little quicker of a explanation for that. Anybody online have any questions?
I have a really basic question, because I'm new to all this. What is the difference between YouTube, if I create a YouTube thing, and a podcast? Because a lot of times I will Google something of interest to me and I'll put video, okay? And all the YouTubes come up.
Yeah, so YouTube is just a video like hosting company, essentially, like a search engine and hosting. You can create
search for the podcast then?
Well, podcast is so like Apple has, if you have an Apple phone, they have their podcasting system. I like to use Listen Notes. It's like a really big repository of podcasts. It even has some podcasts that have been deleted. So one of the podcasts I was on last year, she somehow got onto my personal Facebook page. And at the time I was posting political things. This is like April.
Oh boy.
And we had done our podcast in January. And I guess I reposted something that she didn't like. And she's like, we don't want to be associated with you anymore. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. But she didn't even tell me. She just deleted my episode. And then when I was looking for it to share it with somebody, it was just gone. And so I emailed her and she was all like, I don't want to talk to you. So I needed to fill the space because it was on my website. Everything was listed and promoted. And I needed to have a link to put there instead of just being like, oh, this person deleted me. And I went to Listen Notes and that episode still lives. So I put it back, even though it's not really associated with her anymore. So that
did you put it back in a way that even if Listen Notes cancels it, you'll still be?
So Listen Notes is an aggregate. It pulls from everywhere else.
Yeah.
So if it loses the link, it's going to go find it somewhere else and still put it back. So I kind of got around it that way. So I like Listen Notes for that reason. So if something does get moved or deleted or removed by accident, even they kind of can still find it. It's like this internet archive or something. So it's pretty cool.
So it is an internet archive that does
Yes.
not screen out what it doesn't like?
Not necessarily,
like
not
Facebook.
quite that far, that this lady just didn't like me, something I
Right.
reposted, but they don't really discriminate in that way. There is another link, which I can't remember at the moment. I'll put it in my toolkit if it's not there already, but it's like literally all 4 million podcasts in one
Wow.
website.
Hmm.
I don't remember the link at the moment, but it's like all of them, like literally. And it doesn't screen anything. And it's based on the guys who
Wow.
originally started podcasting, like started the whole thing, the creators of what a podcast is. They run that site. So it's like everything. I haven't delved into that one yet because it's very overwhelming, but Listen Notes is kind of like a little dip your toe in that water. And you can claim yourself on Listen Notes. So since I've been on so many shows, I'm an author, or like a podcaster essentially. So I have my own shows that they list under my name, and then they have all the shows that I've been on, they list under my name. Not every single one is there. All of them are listed on my website, but most of them are there. I think over 120 are there right now.
So when you go to your website and you want to listen to something, do you have to go to, can you listen to it directly from yours, or do you?
A lot of times, if we have the link, it'll either be embedded, so you can just listen to players right there, or the
Yeah.
video. I love pulling the YouTube link though. So if they've posted it twice, like they have it on Apple and then they posted the video on YouTube, I'll pull the YouTube link. Anytime I save any link that someone sends me, sometimes they'll send me 2 or 3, like
Mhm.
this is the YouTube, this is the SoundCloud, this is the Apple, they'll send me all the different ones. It's the same thing, just different places. I'll find the one that I know is gonna last the longest, which is
Mhm.
YouTube,
Okay.
because YouTube's free. And unless they delete their account,
I've had some of my YouTube videos deleted that were like 10 years ago, and I can't go find, I haven't found them. Maybe they're on Listen Notes or some other.
I don't
place.
know. It depends, like, because Listen Notes starts with the podcast side and
Yeah.
then pulls the links around that.
Okay,
So,
right.
but you might be able to find them through that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I like that. I try to pull something that I know is going to be there the longest.
Right.
And then if something disappears, then I can go to Listen Notes and try and find it, or
Right.
to this big podcasting site, and try and find it.
Mhm.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right, excellent.
yeah, podcasting it can be a lot of extra work though, even just on the guesting side. Like we've just talked about all the things that you can do with it, and it can be a lot of work, but I try to keep it really streamlined. Again, taking out what everybody else does and just doing my own way. Like I apply every couple of days or every other day. I just do it in the 5 minutes it takes. Like if it comes up in my email, I just do it right then. I don't, I'll set it aside, do it in my little time block. No, I just do it now. So I apply every couple days. When I go on a show, I send them all this information ahead of time. And then sometimes I don't even fill out their form. They'll have like these forms they want you to fill out.
Yeah.
And I just email them and say, here's the link, it has everything you need. And they're like, oh, you're so organized.
Yeah.
I don't fill out your form. So then I'll do that. I'll send them that information. I'll be on the show, and then I'll put it in as soon as they send me that link, I put it in a spreadsheet, and then my assistant she puts it into the blog format.
Mhm.
So,
Question.
yes.
Okay, so when you have a link to your podcast on your website, is that the platform that it lives on, or do you put it on YouTube that way? If someone goes to your website and they click on the podcast, do you want to redirect them to the YouTube?
So only when it's someone else's show.
Okay.
So I'm still on the guesting side.
Okay.
So as a guest, I like to embed the YouTube video box
Okay.
in my blog post, because that's how I disseminate them out to my list and stuff, is through blogging, because then I have an RSS feed and it makes it automated. I don't have to worry about it. But if it's like a SoundCloud link and they just have a player, there's no video that goes with it, and that's all they give me, then I'll embed the SoundCloud player. So whatever they give me, if I can embed it, that's what I do. So that when you get the email and you click on it, it's right there, you just play it. You don't have to like go to my thing and then go to another thing and then go to this.
And when it ends, it's not on YouTube or some other thing, it's on your site.
Right, and sometimes with YouTube, you'll have to turn off, when you're doing the embed, there's like options like don't show other videos after this, and that kind of thing. But you're not on another site. You are on this site, it will stop.
Yes.
So, or the little player will stop.
Right.
It won't be sent to another playlist or something.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do podcasts ever have advertisers?
Yes.
Like YouTube has advertisers?
Not in that way. You can actually add advertisers to your own podcast, and a lot of times they call it sponsorships.
Uh-huh.
So they'll say this podcast is sponsored by Captivate. They do podcast hosting and they're amazing. And here's our link to our code to get, it's in the description, you know, that kind of thing. And that's why I'm excited about the sponsor website that's going to be coming up, because it'll take someone like who wants to sponsor a show, but they only want to sponsor hunting shows because they're a
Okay.
rifle company or something,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
or they only want to sponsor tech shows because they make some fancy thing for your Mac or I don't know, whatever. So they're going to specifically say, this is who we'll sponsor. This is what we'll pay per show. This is what we'll pay, how many listeners you have to have. So they're going to be, you know, wanting that level. But then they're going to be able to connect with people that don't even know they exist to help promote. And it's like the host will say, you know, thanks to so-and-so for sponsoring, but it's not like Google ads where it's just gonna after 5 seconds
Oh,
of watching,
yes.
it's like, and there's
Right.
an ad, and you have to
Yeah.
watch the whole
Oh.
thing and you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna move to hosting for a minute. And so again, I have the Pro Toolkit, and there is in the membership. So if you go to the membership side of, it's a free 2-week trial of our membership. There's also a podcasting directory. So when I go to apply for shows, I will create a spreadsheet that I have, and I will put all their people in who I applied. And then when I actually get on the show, I have like all the applications at the bottom, then I'll move it up to the top and fill it in. So then I know the show name and the person who I applied to and everything. It's already kind of there. Then when I actually am on the show, I'll put the date that it's going to be reposted for my side, the date that the interview happened, the date it's going to be published, because sometimes you'll interview with somebody in July and it won't be published till November. So it kind of helps me keep track of like where things are. I've actually had shows just go missing. They were supposed to be published a week later, 2 weeks later, a month later, and they never get published. And so I email the person, never saw that show. What happened to it? You know, I don't have a link for it. And one person was like, oh, I didn't get posted, or the file got corrupted. Let us fix it, you know, and they'll go actually and fix it. So I want to, you have to keep on top of it. So I have a Google podcasting directory that I made in Google Sheets that's on there. The toolkit has a ton of podcasting stuff in it. And for hosting, you want to set an agenda. It's kind of like running a meeting. You don't want to have just randomness. You want to actually say, we're going to do this first, and this is going to be our intro, and this is going to be our outro. And you want to pick the right music. That's important. It's kind of part of that branding thing. Picking the right name. And then picking the right format in general, like that agenda. So I'll talk a little bit about my podcast that I run. Again, totally different from everybody else. I did the whole interview thing. I would record these things. And when you're not having the right kind of day and you're interviewing somebody, it's not good. Like it's just not fun for anybody. And I had that experience a couple times. And I decided that all the time it took me to interview, to get the person to actually sit down for the hour, to get on their calendar, to get their photos from them, to get their bio from, like, no one else is as organized as me. So I said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so I just quit. I didn't do any podcasting. I just turned everything off, deleted my accounts, done. And then at the beginning of last year, before everything happened, this is like January, I thought, what if podcasting fit my lifestyle? That's the way I do everything else. Why doesn't, if I want a podcast, but I need it to fit what I'm already doing, how do I make it fit my lifestyle? I know that I can record 2 minutes of amazing content all the time.
Mhm.
I could just have a conversation with somebody on the phone and be like, oh, I should talk about this. 2 minutes pod, 2 minutes of like talking about something that's amazing. Like, oh yeah, this is something you need to know. You don't need to do this. Forget about that. Here's your golden nugget for the day. Off you go. So I thought, well, why don't I just record a 2-minute podcast and be done with it? And if I can only do 2 minutes, then I don't have to edit it, right?
Right.
Unless I mess up, I can just start over. It's only 2 minutes of my life. And what if I always kept it to 2 minutes and I never went over 2 minutes?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
how would that even work? So I made my intro with music, made my outro with music. And I just started recording 2-minute. And I had, when you're on your phone, I record it with my phone, by the way. I never record them with big fancy mic and all the equipment. I just literally sit with a list of topics that I want to talk about. Notes, literal bullet points, like I don't have anything fancy written down. Open up my voice memos and it's showing me a number countdown, like it's counting up. So I'm very aware of the time. If I'm talking about something, I'm gonna have to do 2 on that same subject. Part 1, part 2, if I get like rolling, I'll end the one, start another one. 2 minutes. No one wants to listen for longer than that.
That's true.
Like, and no
I
one was
love it
commuting at
already.
the time either. I mean, once we got into like March, nobody was commuting. It wasn't like I needed a 30-minute commute podcast. I've been on 10-minute podcasts, 20-minute podcasts, 30-minute podcasts, 45-minute podcasts, 60-minute podcasts, and 3-hour podcasts as a guest.
Oh,
No one has a 2-minute podcast. Almost like they're starting to figure it out now. I'm like, start something else. I have to think of something else. But 2 minutes is enough. I don't need to go on and on. Obviously, it's been an hour and I've gone on. But I don't need, for like most subjects, you don't need to go on and on. So I could take everything that's in this presentation that I gave today and literally for like the hosting one, why is being a host important? What is my agenda? Who should I be interviewing? When should I be posting? How should I promote it? That's 5 podcasts. I could literally talk for 2 minutes on every single one. Now, I have videos on all of these things? Yes. Are they more in depth? Are they like 10 minutes? Are they like 15 minutes long? When I do a video, I want to give that extra. That's in the membership. But you only get 2 minutes of me for free. That's all you get. And then if you want to talk, we can talk about that. But 2 minutes for free. And then I thought, well, everyone else has guests. And I've met some really cool other hosts who would be awesome. Like they would be great. And they're really those succinct people that I would love to have do just like 2 minutes, just like 1-2 punch, right? And so I thought, well, how am I going to make them do that? And then I thought, well, I don't have to interview them. They can interview themselves. So I gave them a list, a bullet point. You say your name, you say your company, you say like what you do, your company, that like 2-3 seconds of that, right? You give me 1.5 minutes of just pure, like, here's the info, I'm giving you the value, boom, boom, boom. And then you say what you're giving away. If you want to give something away, visit my website, go see my thing, blah, 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 something that's evergreen, that's not going to go away. So if it's listened to in 6 months, nobody's going to be like, where is this thing? And then you use my tagline. I always end my podcast the same way. I say, talk to you next time. I say that every single time. And I make them say it too. And that way it's branded every single time. And they do it. And I just say, send me your file.
Great.
And I have a form and they fill in the form. They put their name, their picture, their bio. So I can put all that in the, show notes and everything. And they interview themselves. And it's awesome. And I don't cut it. I don't edit it. They got 2 minutes. If they get it wrong, they can redo it. If they don't like it, they don't have to send it to me. They can just redo it till they get it right, till they feel comfortable. If it goes over by like 30 seconds, I'm not gonna be like, oh, it's not 2 minutes. But if it's over, like, it's like 5 minutes, I'm like, I can't use it. Right. I did a 9-minute episode a couple weeks ago. People were going nuts. Oh my gosh, the episode was so long. I was like, oh, sorry. I had a lot to say. And I wasn't gonna post that one, but I did. So, and it only takes me 10 minutes to produce an entire episode.
has Doug done one yet?
He
Your
has
2
not.
minutes?
He has not.
Hey, hey.
And by the way,
Yes.
I will invite you, but it is invite only. No one can apply to my episodes.
They can apply, but you don't have to approve them.
I just tell them I don't accept
Application.
applications. I just reply and say I don't accept applications. So
You'll have
if
to
I've
pay him a
listened to
lot,
them, if I've heard them, like that's why I invite the other hosts that I'm a guest on, because I'm like, I've heard you. I know that if you were to have 2 minutes, if you were just able to go, you'd give something great. And also the sound. Like I'm really big on like the way it sounds. Yeah, has to be good. And there's one guy, he was like, okay, that was a great episode. And I was like, I don't know about that. And he thought I was good. And I was like, well, I said, there's a lot of things. I know you're just starting out. I was like, there's a lot of things you can work on. So keep going, you know?
Mhm.
And he's like, okay, tell me what I need to work on. I'm like, oh, are you sure?
Mhm.
And I actually gave him advice. Like, he was mumbling. He was not close enough to the mic. He wasn't using the right mic. Like, for all the things he wanted it to be, he still mumbles, but he's doing better. He has better lighting. He kind of fixed a bunch of stuff. He's wearing his coat now, which is so funny. He is the tax doctor or something like that. And he wears like a coat because he does taxes for doctors. So
Mhm. Your white coat.
yes, he wears his white and he wears a stethoscope.
Oh, that's so cute.
But like, he has to have a brand, right?
Mhm.
And in his brand, his icon is a little guy that looks just like him, a little cartoon guy, and he's wearing a white coat and a stethoscope. So
Cute.
like, you have to live it, you know?
Yeah.
So he still mumbles though. Sorry, Dakota. You still mumble. But yeah, it's good.
I have a question about
Yeah.
the mic. So do you
Yeah.
just use like the voice memos on the, okay, I love that mic. That's such a great
The reason
microphone.
I do is because even if there's, so right now the air's on in here,
Yeah.
I can audibly hear, like, that's pretty loud.
Yeah.
Mhm.
For if you're gonna record, I wouldn't record right now.
Mhm.
I don't typically record in office spaces. I record at home in my home office, usually at night,
Mhm.
because there's not cars going by, no one's
Mhm.
mowing the grass. It only takes me 2
Barking
minutes.
dogs.
There's no barking dogs usually, like later, you know, like 9 o'clock. And or early in the morning.
Mhm.
So I try to do that. But even if it sounds a little echoey with your, phone mic, the system that I use to edit does audio balancing automatically. So you can listen to a raw episode that I have and an edited episode. I sound like I'm in a studio.
Wow.
So it's awesome.
I once had to record vocals for a Japanese commercial. And so I just recorded on my iPhone in my closet that was full of clothes.
Yes.
So it sounded good. And afterwards, they brought me into a regular studio, a proper like full-on studio. I recorded, the company chose the one that I recorded on my iPhone. And they're like, tell us what mic this is. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, my friend lent it to me. I was like, I'm not telling them.
Steve Jobs. Yeah.
Steve Jobs did it.
So I've learned that this mic is like amazing.
It is.
It really
And
is.
even if you have, like, I record it in our office usually, and it's got wood floors. It has a rug, but a smaller one, and it has wood floors. So there is that little like echoiness, like just a slight bit.
Wow.
But that audio thing on Alitu, like, it makes me sound like I'm in a radio studio. And I've been in radio studios and I've recorded in big studios before. And even it sounds like super comparable that you would, unless you were super
Right,
trained, you
yeah.
wouldn't even know.
We were recording 2-minute segments for the Wilder Wisdoms
Yeah.
video just the other day. And all of a sudden the air conditioning came on and it went, woo,
Yeah.
and so, but we opened the door and then that took care of it.
Yeah.
It eliminated the vibration, so it's
Yep.
good. Hmm.
Any questions from online about hosting your own show? Got to find what works for you. That's the main thing, really. You got to find what fits with what you're going to be able to keep up with. I could not keep up with an hour-long show every week, every month, even.
Oh,
Yeah.
No way. I couldn't
So
do it.
Elizabeth,
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify, you were just using your phone?
Yeah.
Microphone? Because
The voice
somebody,
memo. Yeah, voice memos
Voice
on
memo.
my phone.
so voice memos,
Uh-huh.
is that different than just recording something?
Well, it's built into your phone. Would you have an iPhone or an Android?
And that's where, I've got an iPhone, but is that where
Yeah.
you store it then?
It's actually stored in there, but then I actually export it to my computer and then I edit it. So editing only means that I put the beginning intro and outro on it with the music and hi, you're listening to whatever. Like, I put all that on the ends. That's in the editing program called Alitu. It's in the Pro Toolkit, and there's a discount link in there as well. And so I use Alitu to edit it so that it's one whole piece with all my music and intros and outros. And then I use Captivate to host it. So it's kind of like having a website. You can't just be like, oh, I made a website on my computer. Here it is. Has to have a host, right? It has to live somewhere. And so the actual full recording with the intro and outro and everything edited down and the audio fixed and everything from Alitu can automatically be sent to Captivate. And then Captivate will schedule, you can make drafts, you know, whatever. And then I actually schedule them in there. I'll do like 15 to 20 at a time. And then I'll schedule them all out. And right now we're on hiatus because I ran out and I didn't have time to do more. So it's been on hiatus for 4 weeks and people are emailing me, where's the podcast? So I have
That's
to get
great.
back on the wagon.
That's
here.
great. Boy, this is amazing.
Hmm.
Just
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah, so on the Wilder Wisdom subscription, we do a Wilder Wisdom Wednesdays. And so every Wednesday we do a 1 to 2 minute piece. And so I'm wondering, you know, maybe the idea then is to, and so then I've also done some Braincast, which is a podcast by, where I'm the guest, for Dr. Sean Orr does it. And so I'm wondering if, and often I interview some of my clients on there. So I think we put those on my website, but they're hour long, which is extremely long. I've only listened to 2 of them, I think, you know.
Yeah.
The one Saturday I spent listening to 3 or 4 of them. But boy, you know, but they're very long. So I'm wondering, can we take that and break it up?
Yeah.
Into-
Well, now it's already been a podcast though, right?
Yes.
So if you were gonna break it up, I probably wouldn't break it up. You could, but I wouldn't. I would just take that episode, and if it's out there in the world for free, it's out there in the world for free.
Yeah.
I would actually devise something else. So instead of you doing a podcast in addition to everything you're doing right now, I would maybe make the Wilder Wednesdays only like once a month. You post it for free, like one of them. So you post the first one of the month. Let's say every month there's a theme, right?
Yeah.
And all 4 of them are about the same thing.
Yes.
But the first episode is kind of more introductory about the topic. And like,
Yes,
I'm
yeah.
just guessing, Caroline probably is like, oh, that's not how it goes, huh? But I'm just kind of giving you like, if you were doing it this way.
Yeah.
The first one's maybe like introductory and you're
Right.
giving a little bit of info, but you're not really like teaching on it. But
Yes.
the other episodes are getting more into very specific topics and diving deeper.
Right.
You're gonna post the first one because it's only 2 minutes as the Wilder podcast.
And that's for free.
And that's free out there. And you
Yeah.
say if you'd like to listen to the rest of the episodes for this month, you can join Wilder Wisdom Wednesdays.
Right.
And then you
Wow.
only post once a month. And then maybe another time a month, maybe once a month also, you post a 30-minute interview that you do separately with a client or something. That is just its own separate thing, but it's part of the same podcast. Because some people will do like an hour-long episode and then a 10-minute episode, and an hour long, and that's every month. So they're not having to do these long drawn-out things every week or every month.
Right.
So they have this formula of like this every other. So you could do your video. It's still in the membership and everything, but it's also a little bit free sprinkle out there on the podcast. And then you also have a 30-minute interview or even a 15-minute interview that you do with a client. I would say a client that someone who's worked with you, somebody who's happy, and you only need 1 a month. You only need 12 a year. That's not gonna be a problem. Or one of your coaches.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
however you want to do that. So you could have a 2-minute episode, which you're already doing, right? Don't reinvent the wheel, and add a 15-minute episode every month, which you're probably already doing kind of anyway. And then maybe if you're doing a whole 30-minute episode for the other, maybe that goes into a behind the scenes thing. You can only get the full episode here and only half of it goes out for free. So there's options.
Wow.
Good. I love
Don't
it.
reinvent though. Don't do more than you have to. You don't need to do more.
Yeah.
That's nice, because what you have is, you have a teaser. And if I didn't like that and thought, oh, I don't want to hear about this, then I don't have to go ahead.
It still has to be complete enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
so it still has to be like the one guy, he had like 15 minutes with these questions.
Mhm.
And if you want to hear the rest of our interview, you know,
Yes.
but he finished it off. It was complete.
Okay.
We didn't just stop in the middle and go, oh, that cliffhanger, you're gonna have
Yeah.
to become a member, you know. It was a complete interview.
Yeah.
And then there was another complete interview that was more
Okay.
in depth. So you do want to at least make sure you're giving
Yeah.
people a full
Cliffhanger
value.
doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work. Maybe if you were doing it like next month and
Yeah.
you wanted them to come back, but
Oh,
I would say it's
No.
better to have like a little
yeah.
more in-depth version, you know, somewhere else. So You're writing this all down, Caroline. I just made you a ton of more extra work.
This is amazing.
Mhm.
I never knew you could vary it so much, that there's so many options to use.
Yeah.
I always thought, well, either you do an hour podcast or you don't do any podcasts, you know?
You can do it
And-
however you want because it's an open medium. It's you, and I, like I say, it doesn't fit in your lifestyle, don't even do it. Just don't even bother. It's not for you. And
I
that's
like the 2-minute.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can do it.
Mhm. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Any other questions?
One of the difficulties I have is I cannot remember what to say, and I bumble everything I say
I do
anyway.
too.
So,
I just record it.
so you just record it. Just go.
If you listen to any of mine that are my podcast, the 2-minute ones, I mess up all the time. And if I really mess it up,
Yeah.
I will literally just start over.
Yeah.
And it's 2 minutes. I've only been a minute in, maybe.
Mhm,
And I'm like, this is not working.
mhm.
So I was recording one and I think I deleted it. I think I did because I was recording it in my office and I'm right near a bathroom.
Uh-huh.
And there was like sounds. I don't know
Sounds
if
that
it's
you wish you hadn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't, it's not this, it's not on here anymore because these are all 2 minutes and that one was like 40 seconds. I was getting into it and
Yeah.
then I had been re-recording that one like twice and I'm like, forget it.
Mhm.
I just go home and do it, like, because I was just so frustrated. But yeah, that's why I said, don't do it in an office. If
Right,
you're
right.
gonna record something, make sure it's somewhere you know is gonna be quiet, or you can at least tell everyone like, nobody flushed the toilet, nobody
Yeah.
yelled at anybody. Like, don't
Oh,
do
yeah.
it, don't do anything.
Yeah, that's so funny.
I also did an ebook through voice memos where I did a 12-day ebook and it's a 1 to 2 minute like chapter, but it's like for the day.
Mhm.
So it was like a 12-day challenge kind of, but it was like an ebook. But I mean like an audiobook. So I don't know. I haven't released that one yet, but that was another thing that I did. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty easy to come up with the content. And like you said, when you're messing up, I usually just laugh. If I start to mess up, I'm like, I mean, really, if you just,
right.
make up something.
Right. It's good.
Yeah.
On the, so you're not in notes. I have Apple.
Yeah, it's
and
called voice memo.
I can
So-
lead to it. I use it every day.
So I must, so it's something I have to download then.
No,
No,
it's
no,
in
it's
your
in
phone.
there.
It's in there.
So-
Yeah, just,
Okay.
yeah, you go to
It
the
just looks
main
like this.
page and pull down.
Yeah, I
Oh,
found
yeah,
it.
looks like that. Okay, I've seen
Yeah.
that. Oh, it's
Yeah,
right there.
I
on my
found
first
it.
page.
It's right
There
there.
it is. Oh.
No, it's like in your utilities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, okay. I recorded lots of things on here. Right.
Yeah.
I record my, when I play piano, if I'm singing a song or something, I will record it and then
I
like
did the same.
record it again later and
Yeah.
see if I've improved, you know? Now, I will say this about when you're guesting. A lot of people don't like to hear themselves. Get over it. Just
Yeah.
get over it.
Right.
You need to listen back. You need to listen back to your stuff.
Oh, really?
Even when I've been on that 3-hour
To improve
podcast.
upon your, to improve or to,
So we're not good in general. People are not good at, I'll say humble people are not good at like knowing when they've been brilliant,
mhm.
right? And everyone else could be like, oh, you said this thing and it made me like, oh, you made my business better. And they're writing it down and everything, and that's great. But when we've been brilliant on like a podcast, no one's telling us that.
Yeah.
It's
Mhm.
recorded, it's out there, it's
Sure.
done, and the guest isn't gonna go, they might say, or the host isn't gonna say, oh, that was brilliant. They might say that,
Yeah.
but then you're on to something else and like 10 seconds later, you forget, like
Sure.
it's gone. So I listen back to my shows because I'll hear things that I say sometimes and I'm like,
You like it?
dang,
Dang.
that's pretty good. Like I need to write that down, you know?
Yeah, right.
And so I'll use those on my website for social media posts or like, because I don't remember what I said.
Yeah.
Honestly, if you told me right now that I said something brilliant in this whole hour, I would really. That's great. I'm so glad you got something out of it because I don't remember every little thing. So I use that, but I also use it to hear how I tell a story,
Yeah.
to hear the way in which I got to the story,
Right.
how I ended that story. I've told stories before where I was like, girl, if you were standing in front of, like, if you were Pinocchio, your nose would be like out here, you embellish that way too much.
Yeah.
Like, because when you're telling something and you get into it, sometimes it happens, like you just kind of go off with the tangent. And then there's other times I'm like, I didn't tell the story well at all. I left out all these good details that could have been helpful, or all these good things. So especially when you're doing so many, like when I was doing so many at a time, there was ones, like I said, where I would go off and embellish and be like, I could have left some of that out. And then other times I was like, I didn't say enough.
Yeah.
So listening back, hearing it, and also it improves your brand knowledge of your own brand. So if you listen to any of my podcasts, there's like it's 140 or so. There's a lot of them are built around social media because that's what people wanted to hear about. Talk about social media. And they're almost all the same, but they're not, because the host asked different questions. There was a different audience in mind, whatever. But if you have a random client of mine, they'll be like, oh yeah, I already heard that. It sounds like you talk about the same thing all the time. But to me, when I listen back to it, I hear all the things that are part of my brand story. I don't like that I use this phrasing or this verbiage. I don't want to use that anymore. But now I know I've said it and I can get rid of it. And I can kind of improve on what I do. And telling your story over and over and over and over makes it shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter.
Refines it.
And it's a huge help to get over any kind of, I don't like listening to myself. I don't like to be on stage, or because I know some people do it, but they don't necessarily like it and it's not really like enjoyable. This kind of gets you over all of that. You have to be on camera. Sometimes you're not on camera. Sometimes you prepare to be on camera and then they don't record you. Like, it's all these different things that can happen with it, but then you also have this opportunity to speak, and you can really learn how to make yourself more succinct by listening back and going, why did I go into all of that? I didn't need to say any of that. Like, that would have been a way better interview if I had cut myself from here to here and eliminated all this. Now, the host isn't going to tell you that. They're just like absorbing whatever you're telling them. But it's going to help you for the next interview if you've listened to the other interview first. And there's some that I listen to and I'm just like, I don't want to listen to the rest of it, but I do. And I'll do it like while I'm doing dishes, while I'm doing laundry, like while I'm doing something that doesn't require any brain power, or I'm out in the yard or whatever, or walking the dog, because I need to listen to it as if a listener was listening to it. And how is that coming across? And so I do the things that they do when they're listening, driving, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it would also help me to see the negatives of, I just did one, and then, well, but, you
That
know, all
happens a
that.
little bit.
Maybe I need to take an acting course.
Go back to Toastmasters.
But I think when you're doing an interview, you don't hear a lot of that.
Right.
Because the person is talking with you. You don't really say a lot of those things when you're talking with somebody. Not typically. Because if you're sitting there and they go, so Doug, tell me about when you first knew that you were going to be in business. You're like, well, let me think about it. No, you already know the answer. You have the story already like queued up, right? So you asked about questions earlier. As a guest, I do have a list of questions that I will provide, but I typically don't like to hand them out unless they really like push me about it.
It makes them too stilted.
It does. It's like, I'm telling you what I want you to ask me. That doesn't mean anything. And then that means I can't think on my feet. That's what this whole exercise is about, thinking on your feet, because they're going to ask you questions. They might send you a list of questions, but I never rely on that. I was actually at a panel this week and they asked every single question on the list. And I was like, well, I could have just prepared all these answers, but I didn't want to. I wanted to hear what the other people on the panel were going to say and then formulate an answer as they were talking. And if I was first, I read the question while she was reading it and I had an answer. So it's like, you have to be able to like think quickly. But yeah, no, I don't get a lot of the negatives. You don't have a lot of the ums. I did find though, that when you're listening back to yourself, you have to sound way more positive than you feel, or than you even would normally be.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So when I'm recording my podcast as a host, I am smiling, I am talking like this, my face just
Yeah.
looks like a sunbeam.
Yeah.
But that's not how normally I am, like not
Yeah.
on an every minute basis.
Mhm.
But when it's only audio, you have to project that almost in a cartoonish kind of way. When you only have audio. Now, when I'm on the video, obviously you could be normal and that comes across because all the body language is there.
Right.
But when it's only audio, I had some people when I would get off the podcast with them and it was only audio, I was like, oh, he hated this answer, and oh, he didn't like me when I said this, and oh, he was just like he didn't like me at all, and this was a horrible one. And then I listened back to it 2-3 weeks later. It was just me. It was just me thinking that he would, like, the person who was interviewing me didn't like me. And that happened a couple of times where the guy kind of seemed a little like, okay. And so then this question, and that's just the way he was, but I couldn't see him. I didn't get the body language because we were just on audio. And so listening back, my answers, because I was trying to overcompensate for what I thought he was doing, the way he was acting, my answers were super positive. And because my answers were super positive, when you listen to it as a whole,
It
it
sounds
sounds
good.
flowing
Yeah.
and like we're having a great conversation, even though when I was sitting there, I was like, what's he doing?
Yeah.
He hates me, so it just having that ability to, you said acting, you might have to take an acting class or two, but to really emote more than you would normally. And I feel like that when you go on stage, you do that a little bit as well. You need to be more animated, you need to be more, especially when you're doing like Zoom stuff, because boring talking head stuff. But yeah, it's very helpful when you can do that and even look ridiculous and act ridiculous in podcast.
I'm also thinking that we can talk about sound bites and that sort of thing. And I know we only got about 2 more minutes. So do you plan things out for sound bites? No.
Because my podcast is only 2 minutes, I don't do the clips out to put on social.
Sure.
I'm actually thinking about going forward next year, because I do all my social media a year ahead. For next year, I'm actually thinking about incorporating into my monthly planning to actually create 1 to 2 minute videos just for LinkedIn and still do my podcast. And then, or maybe have clips, like do my first part of my membership videos, because I've been doing those, but haven't been structuring them quite right. Maybe do the first part as like an intro, then actually have my intro and then do the rest of the video and use that initial clip and build it so that I can use that on social. So I'm still kind of working that out, but I'm not going to do that with my podcast because it's too short. But if I was going to do it for my podcast, I would almost like pre-intro it, like do it like I was starting the episode, and then say, and that's what we're going to talk about today on the podcast, and then have my music and then you're listening to the podcast, whatever, and then say, we're talking about blah, blah today, and then go into the podcast, but use that pre-intro as like an actual preview and then use that on social. But I would structure my podcast around knowing that I wanted to do that.
Excellent. Good. Well, this has been
Okay.
extremely
I just have one
good.
more
You go,
question.
one more question. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I'll be
Yes.
really brief. Do you think that it's better to have more content or the same content that's posted more times on different platforms?
Consistent content.
Okay.
As long as it's consistent, it doesn't matter if, if you're going to do every week, like when I committed to every week, that's why I'm a little embarrassed. Like we've been on hiatus. I have slipped the last 4 weeks. Like there's nothing going on. Not on the podcast side anyway. My guest stuff is still going on because there's so much of that. But the actual podcast I create is not going out. And for me to commit to every week since January of last year, like I needed a break. But at the same time, knowing that if I can't commit to that going forward, maybe going forward it'll only be every other week. So when I create 20 podcasts, they are, they're going out. So, and I don't have to do as many, right? So it's just about consistency. Whatever you're gonna pick, just pick it, do it for as long as you can. And if you need to change it at some point, change it, but then be consistent with that. And don't keep changing it because now it's once a month, now it's twice a week, now it's once a week, now.
Okay, great, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much. This has been
Yes, thank you.
tremendous.
This
and
has been great.
Great. Wow. So looking forward to This has been the best ever.
That's right.
Great,
Best guest ever.
best guest ever.